The Dallas Cowboys beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and advanced to the divisional round of the playoffs. What does that mean going forward? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less in their prize pick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That is PrizePicks.com. Promo code Locked On. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, what's going on today?
Not a ton. We're just casually celebrating that the just in about 15 minutes on the East Coast will be the 30th anniversary of the last time that the Dallas Cowboys won a road playoff game. And after that game, emblazoned in the halls of Cowboy lore, Jimmy Johnson uttered the phrase that I'm going to utter to you now. How about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys? So yes, the Dallas Cowboys get a road playoff win against Tampa Bay, 31-14. I promise the score or the game was not as close as that final score. Dallas just completely dominated this game. It was a little hairy in the first quarter. The Cowboys had back-to-back 3-and-outs. But so did Tampa Bay. Yeah. And then the offense just took off. They scored 6 points in the first quarter, 12 points in the second quarter, 6 points in the third quarter, 7 points in the fourth quarter. The story of this game is the offense. They just completely dominated Tampa in this one.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys offense basically after those two 3-and-outs and then obviously Tampa had their 2 3-and-outs. They kicked into high gear, and then they basically never took their foot off the pedal until, somewhere in the middle of the end of the third quarter, the beginning of the fourth quarter. And they just really...
I got it right here, Landon. So they started punt, and then these were the Cowboys' next drives. Touchdown, 7 plays, 80 yards. Touchdown, 15 plays, 80 yards. Touchdown, 11 plays, 91 yards. Touchdown, 8 plays, 86 yards. Touchdown, 8 plays, 31 yards. Punt, 9 plays, 66 yards. Touchdown. And then by the time the Cowboys touched the ball again, there was 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
When they ran the 4th-and-1 naked bootleg with that Dak scored on, it was over at that point. I honestly, if at that point I was like, even though it was only, I think, 12-0 at that point, like the fact that they were calling the game like that they were playing so aggressively, they understood the assignment. That we watched so many of these games where the Cowboys did not understand who they were playing, did not understand that you cannot, allow these teams to let down. There are so many times when the Cowboys previously would have kicked that field goal. And to me, the fact that they not only went for it, but also called that naked bootleg, I really felt like that was when I was like, okay, these guys understand the assignment and they're executing at a level that I don't know that Tampa Bay is going to be able to stop them.
We're going to talk about Brett Maher in a second, but you're right. There was just we're settling for field goals in this game. We're playing the field position battle. We're scoring touchdowns every chance that we can. And I love that mentality. And I don't want to get too far ahead, but next week when you play San Francisco, it's got to be the same thing. It's field goals are only going to help you lose this game. You've got to score touchdowns. And they did it. Dak, honestly, I was just talking to Peter from Locked On NFL, and I said, I think this was the best I've ever seen Dak play, not in the playoffs, but just in a game. He had 305 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 9.2 yards an attempt. He also ran the ball. Like, he had some big runs in this game to pick up first downs, 24 rushing yards, a touchdown, 5 total touchdowns in this game. Dak was unbelievable on Monday night.
Yeah, and they did all the things that we've been asking for them to do. I mean, and I think, I kind of felt a little bit vindicated that it felt like they called a completely different game plan than they called previously. They were saving stuff. They look at all the stuff that Kellen Moore pulled out of the bag in order to get points in this game. The quarterback runs, the misdirection, the play action. The looks of look how much they were running Tony Pollard and how fresh he looked, and it was like it was watching the game, and I was partially like just terrified because he just never feels safe against Tom Brady.
Never.
But the other part of me was sitting there watching it and going, it's glorious. It's everything that we talked about. Like they actually brought it all back out and it looks incredible. They managed to keep Tony Pollard fresh throughout the season and keep these running backs moving. And they had a formula. They kept if you wanted to pay attention to CeeDee Lamb and draw attention to the safeties that way, they were going to eat you all day on the seam with Dalton Schultz, and that's exactly what they did. They attacked the edge of the defense with runs to the out, with pulls and power runs, and then zone runs to the outside, and it worked like a charm. And they were able to just kind of do what they wanted to do, even without having to target CeeDee Lamb like outrageously amount. His gravity just pulled all the defense away. Yeah, it was just. They were able to work around all the attention that CeeDee Lamb was getting from this defense, and Tampa Bay didn't give up on it until basically it was too late.
I'll say I kind of had a feeling the game was over when Dak threw that second touchdown to Dalton Schultz, just rolling outside of the pocket. Like
it was just
he was feeling himself at that point. And when Dak gets to a level where he's that confident, you're just not going to beat him. Like he was just seeing things so clearly. And then on top of that, he was putting the ball wherever he wanted to. So this is what we've been waiting for in a playoff game, is for Dak to just go off like this. And against the Todd Bowles defense, it's been really good. And this is the first time they've been healthy all year. They shredded them. And
shredded them.
To their credit, they didn't really run the ball at all in the first half. And when they did, they didn't do it well. They kind of just let Dak, take over this game. He was making the calls. He was playing in hurry up. He was being aggressive, and that's how they won this game.
Yeah, I think that they were a lot more comfortable with the offensive line matchups in pass protection than they were kind of having to bang their head again in the run game over and over again. I think Vita Vea was a force in this game early on, and then as the game wore on, I think he just got tired, and not that he wasn't winning big, but he was winning, but he didn't have the ability to kind of get back into the backfield and make the sack. So I bet he had a ton of pass rush wins tonight, and I know that he's probably going to have a ton of hurries. But Dak was, able to kind of get around him, operate out of the pocket, and just was getting the ball off. He only took one sack for 8 yards, and considering how many times
first drive of the game.
Yeah, I mean, considering how many times I saw him, like kind of just sliding off pressure or getting through bodies. That was really, really impressive. And I think it shows you but Tom Brady did an excellent job too. Honestly, he was under duress way more than Dak was, but you saw just like how good quarterbacks operate in a pocket with pressure. It was really impressive to see both of them, but obviously Dak played a little better.
We're going to have lots of time to break down Dak's performance this week, but let's talk about the defense. Before we do that, I'll let you know about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They are currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the PrizePick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That means if you deposit $100, they'll give you $100. If you deposit $50, they'll give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Landon, let's talk about the Cowboys defense in this game. If you look at the stat sheet, it would appear the Cowboys had an game, right? They gave up over 425 yards in this game. Tom Brady threw the ball all over the place, but I couldn't be more impressed by how Dallas's defense played on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, I would think we would be absolutely remiss if we didn't immediately mention Micah Parsons' name.
Best player of the field by a lot.
this was defensive player of the year type performance, man. I mean, I think he only ended up technically with 1 sack, but he should have ended up with another half sack at the end, if I'm not mistaken. He must have had more than a dozen pressures. I mean, easily. He was just all over the place.
Multiple
Tom
tip
Brady
passes.
was multiple tip passes. Tom Brady was just terrified. I mean, it completely threw Brady off of his game. Brady was seeing ghosts, was shortened balls, and he was getting free other people like Armstrong and Odigizua inside, and they were getting loose and getting hands on Brady. He was just under assault all night, and it all started with where Parsons was, whether it was on the outside taking on worse than Smith, just in normal pass rush situations, or blitzing right up the middle, which was really terrifying for Brady. I don't know. There was a couple different times where he just, was fading away and throwing the ball away just because he saw, Parsons coming untouched. Just an absolutely dominant performance by, frankly, the entire defensive line. They all played pretty decently. Hankins had a sack himself as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think it just shows you when you've got a guy like Parsons playing at that level, it affects everything on the rest of your defense, especially the other people on the defensive line.
I mean, I'm not sure I've seen a better performance in the playoffs. The Cowboys are used to rotating defensive linemen so frequently. I like to keep these guys fresh, but it seems to me that Dan Quinn kind of went to Parsons before this game and said, we're going to need you to play almost every snap, and you're going to need to dominate. Landon, he almost did. He played 79 of 82 snaps as a pass rusher. That is insane. Absolutely insane. The only guys that played more were the secondary guys, Bland, Wilson, Diggs, Hooker. 79 snaps from an edge rusher.
And let's keep in mind that Brady attempted 66 passes. So that was 66 times that he had to rush the passer. I mean, if he was on the field for all 66
pass rushes he got today.
Yeah, that's just absolutely absurd. And it just shows you what kind of player he is, and what kind of a freak he is, and big players make big plays. I mean, again, kind of going backwards a little bit, we can't leave this show without talking about Leighton Vander Esch and
he was awesome.
and Javon Curse. Javon Curse, I thought they both just played absolutely incredible games. And it was so good to have Leighton Vander Esch at that. There were so many different times where first of all, he almost had 2 interceptions. Second of all, he was just playing the run incredibly well and making tackles on the edge and just, being everywhere he needs to be and being the kind of vacuum when other guys miss tackles to, suck up run ball carriers and make sure they don't go anywhere. And Curse, had an interception in the end zone and then almost had another one later. I'm hoping he's okay. We'll see. We'll I'm sure get a report on him soon. But it was just incredible to see how well that second level of this defense was playing.
Yeah, I mean, Israel Makamu played 37 snaps in this game. It's like they've been saving him all season long for this special role. We're like, hey, we're not going to play you at all, but you're going to be our slot corner against Chris Godwin. I mean, just Dan Quinn played a lot of different guys in this game. A lot of different players stepped up. I think it is clear that they're just a completely different defense with Leighton Vander Esch on the field, though. Like, they just don't have another linebacker that can be a positive player in the run game, but also can drop back in coverage and make plays on the football and know where to be at in zones. Like, Vander Esch just played one of the better games I've seen him play over the last several years.
Yeah, and just to kind of top off, I think now we can maybe say his best season as a pro. Really, really a fantastic year for Leighton Vander Esch. Totally exceeded all of our expectations for him. And if this is the kind of football he's going to be playing, it really does bode well again for us next week, which is going to be a very physical matchup.
I also say Jonathan Hankins, it was nice to have him back in the lineup. He helped. Carlos Watkins played another really good game.
Again.
Also,
and Golston too had that. I don't think it was. They didn't end up giving him a sack, but he had that huge pressure that forced that fourth down throw. In a key part of the game. Yeah, no, Diggy, you mentioned. Yeah, it was absolutely. I mean, the defensive tackles in general played fantastic football in this game, which is right when we need them to be playing fantastic football.
Yeah, one of the best performances this defense has had in a while, because it just seemed like whenever they needed to make a play, they did. Whether it was there was a goal line stand that you mentioned, the Jay Run Curse one. There was even a big moment in this game where the score was 24-0. Tampa scored a touchdown, and then they went for 2, and Dallas got the stop. And once they got the stop, it's like, okay, now it's going to be really hard for them to come back being down 18 or whatever. But if they get it to be a 2-score game, I think things maybe get a little bit tighter. There was another time where Tampa Bay had the ball down inside the 10-yard line, didn't get any points, turnover on downs. Like every big moment, the Cowboys seemed like they came up and made a play. It's just not used to seeing this from this defense, at least for like not in the last couple decades. It seems like the defense has always let you down in big moments. Now
Well,
they make plays.
when was the last? I mean, besides the Vikings game, when was the last time this season where you seen the offense and defense both playing at an extremely high level at the same time? It's been a while, and I think that's the last time. And now you're starting to see that come together right when it needs to. We have got to take our hats off to Mike McCarthy. I mean, just had this team ready to play in an impossible situation. Everything was working against them. And then throughout the season, just has put them in a position to win these ball games. Hats off to him and the performance he was able to get out of these guys. They came ready to play, and they thoroughly dominated and embarrassed a team that has won the Super Bowl in the last 3 or 4 years, and was playing at home and with something to care for with one of the greatest quarterbacks who's ever played the game.
Just making a mental note, just going forward, what happens in Week 18 is no indication of what's going to happen in the playoffs. Just remember that, guys. Cowboys destroyed Philadelphia in Week 18 last year. They came out flat as could be against San Francisco, lost that game. Dallas played their worst game, as I say, of the last couple of years against Washington, and they come out and dominate Tampa Bay. So
not even just to dominate, like this is the best football game they've played in 4 years, maybe. I mean, like the Vikings game we mentioned, but considering this is the playoffs and this is at Tampa Bay and Tom Brady's on the field, like this is the best game the Cowboys have played in a very long time, and it's incredibly encouraging.
All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room right now. That's Brett Maher. But before we do that, I want to let you know about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from the NFL playoffs to basketball to baseball, which is coming up in a few months. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, and we know that you do because you're listening to one right now, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. It's always the fastest and the easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I've got to read a tweet before we go on. This one from David that came literally a minute ago. He says, @Marcus_Mosher, please never praise Brett Maher again. Just let him quietly be incredible. I think that's fair. We talked about Brett Maher a lot over the last couple of weeks, how he's been finally a kicker the Cowboys can rely on.
No,
he missed more extra points in a single game than any kicker ever in the history of the NFL.
Again, stop thinking that you can rely on kickers. Stop it. Like, kickers are not reliable unless his name is Justin Tucker. And someday Justin Tucker is going to let his team down too. Yep. You never should feel good or bad about your kicker situation, because it's Schrodinger's cat. It's like you don't know what you've got until you open the box and either the cat's alive or dead. You don't know what you got until that ball is snapped to your holder and the kicker lines up. Here's the crazy thing about this. I mean, obviously 4 missed extra points out of 5 attempts, right? He got the last one. I guarantee you next week, probably fine. Probably no issues. Probably completely back to normal. I mean, or the complete opposite. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why it's like, just pick your guy and go with it. Like, I don't know. I'm not relying on, I'm not going to ever, I saw you tweeting about it. It's like, I'm never going to trust another kicker again. Never trust a kicker. You should never trust a kicker, period. Even when he's good, even when he's kicking very good. Celebrate him, pat him on the butt when he makes the kicks, but never trust a kicker.
No, I mean, it sounds really weird, but this might actually end up helping the Cowboys going forward, right? For the reasons that we just mentioned. Like, don't settle for field goals. You're going to need to score touchdowns to beat these teams. And we could talk about the extra points and whether you're going for 2 and all that. It's different, right?
Totally, I agree.
But I'm not kicking a field goal until I have to, right? Yeah. And when I have to is, hey, it's a 58-yarder to win the game with no time left, or we're down by 2. If you make this, we win the game. That's when I want to kick field goals, not any other time. So sucks. Hopefully they figure it out. Maybe it was just a field thing. I think that field looked awful tonight.
Well,
I don't know if that was part of it.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, but I heard on the radio broadcast that they had to resod just the between the hashes because there was a college game, so they had to rehash to get the hashes correct, right? So
That makes sense.
apparently that the field was a little bit rougher in that
Yeah.
spots than some of the other spots. So I mean, no excuse. You got to make extra points.
Hey, we're
for
playing
God's
San
sakes.
Fran next week. It's not going to get much better.
Oh God, those fields. I mean, seriously, I feel like this is 1992 all again. I remember when I was 13 years old and being terrified of, we have to go play on Candlestick Park's, infield during a football game for the Cowboys. So look, if we could replicate I was tweeting with somebody before the game. If we could replicate the 1992 season, I'm fully on board for that.
Works for me. The Cowboys will play the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday. That's the last game of the week. I believe that kickoff is 3:30 Pacific time, 6:30 Eastern time. I think that's right.
I thought it was 3:30 Central, but yeah, we'll know here in a second.
That's sometime over there. Got a lot of time to get ready for that game, but man, it feels great to have a playoff win again and to be excited about this team going forward.
Hey, if you believed in this team when everyone else was talking trash, man, go on Twitter and talk your trash because you guys you earned it. We suffered through a lot of talk all week, and this team went out there and put everyone in their place. So don't let them forget it. Dan Orlovsky, I'm specifically looking at you. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Sorry, Danny.
Okay, real quick before we go, I have to say the irony that we got a touchdown on the back line with Gallup being able to straddle that back line without stepping out of that bounds. I know Dan Orlovsky was sweating that touchdown when they got that one. It must have been causing some flashbacks.
I'm here for all the video shots. It's so good. So good.
Now someone tweeted that he's now the 11th best quarterback in the playoffs. So
moving on up. Can't wait to see his rankings this week. It'll be fun. That's it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insights you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All the same places that you get the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Check us out over on YouTube. You can follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy your Victory Tuesday, and we'll see you guys right back here tomorrow to talk more about the NFC playoffs.